So recently I've started looking at my life, and I decided to start with the aspirations that I've made since the beginning, since I could first remember making aspirations. And as I've been looking at these, I see, of course, that most of them until I met the Dharma, and including, well, practicing the Dharma, have been based on the 8 worldly concerns, driven by the self-centered thought completely. So I'm not going to tell you all of these. Some of them are just downright embarrassing. Some of these aspirations drove me in very negative directions, and some of them actually drove me in some positive directions. So the first aspiration that really stands out in my mind is when I learned, when I was going to start grade 1, that we'd learn how to read. And I was thrilled. I grew up in a little town, and the concept of kindergarten just didn't happen there when I was about to start school. It happened when my sister went 4 years later. So I was absolutely thrilled. And in the second week of school, our grade 1 teacher, Miss Webb, who I just loved, told us, we'll bring a matchbox to school, because this is where you're going to store the words that you're going to learn how to read. And so I was just thrilled with this idea, but I didn't understand it was this size. I told my mom and dad I needed the small size. And as I was looking at this box, my mom very kindly said, aren't you sure you're supposed to bring the bigger box for your words? I said, no, I'm going to bring the small box. And so, of course, I'm the only kid in the class the next day that brings the small box of matches, and everyone else has a normal size. But I thought with that small box, the magic would be that when I had those 12 words nailed, that I would know how to read everything. I was just over the moon. I was aspiring to read every book in the library with those 12 words in that little matchbox. So I got a different box. I got the bigger box. But I was convinced still that every word in this box would give me the key to knowledge of the world. So I was just so pumped about aspiring to learn to read, which of course I did. And I'm sure some of us in the room had the experience of, the literature at that point in the beginning was, go, go, go. Come, Spot, come and go. Jump up, Spot, jump, jump, jump. Oh, Jane, look and see. See Dick go, see Tim go. See Spot go, 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 jump up, go. And somehow we all made it through this. And we didn't lose our aspiration to read. And it was all because of Miss Weber, who was just fantastic. She loved us all. It was just wonderful. So at the age of 8, and this is after pining for these for about 2 years, I finally saw in the Sears catalog some white go-go boots. Do you remember go-go boots from the 60s? They were white boots that groovy girls wore. We'll have to show you a picture. Anyway, they're white boots about this tall, they're above the ankle. Well, you didn't have a Sears catalog, Venerable, so I aspired so much to have these. And I begged my parents to have these, and my mom said, are you sure? Because these are winter boots. And I said, I really want go-go boots. Please, don't give me anything else for 2 years. Give me these, please, may I have go-go boots? So we ordered these go-go boots from the Sears catalog, and they were actually made of plastic, and they weren't lined, and these were my winter boots. And so in central Alberta, the winter temperatures get down below minus 30 Fahrenheit. And my sister and brother and I, like all the other kids, walked to school. And from our house, we walked in the morning, came back at lunch. After lunch, we walked back to school, came back. And I was having to do this in these go-go boots that I loved so much, and they didn't have lining. And pretty soon, I was having frostbite, and my mom said I was in trouble, so we switched out the go-go boots for some other winter boots. But when it was warmer, I put on those go-go boots until I couldn't wear them anymore, because what was I aspiring for? I wanted to be groovy. I aspired to be groovy because I wanted to be groovy with the other girls in school. And it was pure misery and suffering, so don't aspire for go-go boots. The next thing, I'm just jumping in leaps and bounds because there's too much to talk about here, but by age 22, I did aspire to no longer be a Catholic. I was done with religion. That was it. Done, complete, period. Done. That wasn't such a great aspiration. But somehow, along the way, some karma ripened. And what astounds me is that somehow somebody gave me a Dharma book. I think it was maybe Venerable Chuni before she was a nun, before she was, well, just barely a Buddhist. But anyway, I started reading some books on the Dharma, and I thought, wow, this is really interesting. But I'm a lapsed Catholic. I'm done with religion, so I just won't really give this much stock. But those books wouldn't let me go. And then something happened where I actually went to visit Venerable Chuni, and I heard Venerable Chödrön speak some August night way back in 1996. And again, I was not looking for a religion, trust me. But something very impactful happened, and I was very caught by the way that Venerable Chödrön unpacked the topic of the kindness of others. But I was just visiting in Seattle for a little bit. I was heading back to Canada, back to my life there in samsara, and I just thought it was an incredible experience. And then some more karma arrived, but I wasn't making aspirations to learn. This is what is so astounding to me. I didn't aspire to learn more until I went to my first 10-day retreat at Cloud Mountain, and Venerable Chödrön was leading this retreat, and it was filled with teachings on the Lam Rim. And that really got my attention because it was so immediately practical. And it was then that there was this aspiration where I thought, I would like to know more about this. This is very helpful. And I really want to know what Venerable Chödrön knows. Sorry, I'm talking about you in your presence, Venerable. But I want to know what Venerable Chödrön knows, because she at that time was the happiest person I'd ever seen. She was kind and wise, but always so happy. And by that time, I'd had a lot of teachers, trust me. There were some good teachers. I loved Miss Weber, my grade 1 teacher. And I loved many other teachers along the way too, but I didn't see this level of happiness and joy and wisdom and compassion. It just was so striking. So I thought, I want to know, I aspire to know what Venerable Chödrön knows. That was a driver. And then I went to my second retreat. In my first retreat, I wasn't even thinking about refuge and precepts. It wasn't even a thought. It just didn't get in somehow. But in the second 10-day retreat, which is 2 years later, it was 1 year later, I was starting to get the hang of the fact that I'm stuck in this suffering place. And I think you must have been really drilling down in that retreat on renunciation. I could really see, the whole reason I came for the first retreat was my dear friend Venerable Chuni at the time told me, well, you're so miserable, why don't you come to this retreat? And I thought, why not? I am so miserable. Nothing else is working. Might as well give this a try. So it was then in the second day retreat that I thought, yes, it looks like there's a way out of this mess. I believe Venerable Chödrön. I don't know how to do it really yet, but I'm going to, request refuge and precepts. And that very week, I had just received a diagnosis that I did not have cancer. So I thought, whoa, okay, skip by that one. Now I really know how I want to use the rest of my life. My request was turned down. I was told to wait. I thought, really? And I saw all of these other people going to get the refuge and precepts, but I thought, okay. So I had to wait, and the wait was almost a year. And then it became known that this refuge and precept ceremony would take place in Seattle. So I flew to Seattle just for that reason, and I was really more prepared. I can see now in your wisdom, Venerable, that you probably thought, this wishy-washy Canadian, this 98-pound weakling, she doesn't mean it. She just needs to get herself together and really, really mean it, that she wants to take refuge and precepts. So it worked. It did work. I was really wanting it, really aspiring for it. And so it happened, and I was just over the moon. And I also knew that I hardly knew anything, and that I did aspire from that point at that ceremony to continue learning. At some point, I had the aspiration to go to India and Nepal and do some serious study, because I thought, I can't learn the Dharma working full time. I'm not making any headway. So I went and I had that experience, and it was confirming what I suspected, that, yeah, you have to do this kind of thing full time to make some headway. But I came back and just resumed my life, But then, too, what I saw from monastics in India and Nepal who were Western monastics was it was just so difficult. From my point of view, I saw what what their situations seemed to be, and it just seemed so very, very difficult. So I definitely, even coming back from India and Nepal that year, I had no aspiration to ordain, because I thought, why would a person do that? It just looks so hard. And so, again, I don't know how this happened, but what I now think is true is that aspirations made in past lives, over multiple eons, many, many lifetimes, I must have been doing something along the way where I made those aspirations to meet, a spiritual practice that makes sense, to meet the Dharma, to have a precious human rebirth, to eventually meet authentic spiritual teachers, to meet someone who can really communicate and get through this very thick skull, dull mind that can really inspire this mind to do something virtuous. Because everything up to my life before deciding that I wanted to ordain had nothing to do with that. I wasn't making those aspirations. So that had to be the ripening of some kind of karma. And so, because I want this to be short, I think it's very valuable to start taking a look at one's life and see what's happened as a result of making aspirations and motivations, and seeing what was probably done in this life and what must have come from past lives, and to keep making these aspirations, to keep making this strong will to be monastic in future lives, to meet authentic spiritual teachers, to really want to become a Buddha for the benefit of all. And lastly, I will continue to track down Venerable children in every future lifetime, whether you like it or not, Venerable, and so that you can lead me and all others to full awakening. And don't aspire for go-go boots.